basketball development right here in the country would have been in total disarray. If not for the determination of the coach, talking about the female coach, Rena Wakama and her girls. But for the male, it's been a very disastrous, performance for them in the last 2 years, right? Top, a struggle.
Well, let's hope that there will be calm to the storm at the Basketball Federation. Meanwhile, let's take it a notch higher. The NBA is in action, and Portland Trail Blazers lost at home. It was 114 to 123 points. Mike, it looks like the Portland Trail Blazers might just not come close to it this season.
I think they've been very disappointing so far this season. Not the level where we expected them to be, because I think by now they should be competing for the top 3. But you take a look at their position in the Western Conference. I think they are seated 9th on the log right now, and I think it's not a good one. So many games to play, no doubt. But then at this point, a team that is very serious, that wants to compete or contend for the title by now, should be firing, maybe with the likes of Pistons, the likes of Oklahoma City Thunders that are currently topping their different conferences out there. For Portland Trail Blazers, I think they just need to redouble their efforts.
Well, let's look at it. Double their efforts. They are the Toronto Raptors from Canada. Yes, they were able to wrap up their encounter with Philadelphia 76ers at overtime, and it was 116 to 115 points. What a game.
Yeah, great one for Toronto Raptors. And I think it just goes a whole long way to tell us that what they are doing in the Western Conference is not a fluke, because they are seated 4th. All right, in their conference out there, which for me I think is not a bad, showing at all. So implemented that effort, early hours of this morning with that impressive victory. I just think they have a lot to offer. I listened to their coach just last week when he was talking about the need for the players to, play for each other and not for individual glory. And I think for me, this has been the key element for them so far this season.
Well, let's hope that we'll see more of it. But still bringing some more results from the NBA. Minnesota Timberwolves were a point better than San Antonio Spurs, 104 to 103 points, because they played at home.
Yeah, home advantage also can. But then for Minnesota, I think that, despite the home advantage, they've been doing great as well so far this in their own conference as well. They are also seated 4th. So I think it's not a bad display. Yeah, it was a home advantage. But then beyond the home advantage, sometimes you can even have the home advantage. Then if your players doesn't live up, the home advantage counts for nothing. So beyond the home advantage, I think they have what it takes to, of course, compete for the title as well.
Meanwhile, in Oklahoma, there was a lot of thunder. 124 times did we see thunder, as compared to 112 times that the heat from Miami were able to melt away the thunder. Do we have this Oklahoma City right now coming up to positions where they could get into the playoff?
Yeah, definitely. If you take a look at their conference right now, they are topping their conference, all right, 33 wins, 7 losses so far, the highest of any team in both conferences as we speak right now. So for OKC, I think this might just be their season. Too early to call, though, some will say, but then if you take a look at, the way they've started the season from March down to about 40-something games played thus far, I think you can also give it to them as one of the title contender, because they'll be holding it down. They'll be very consistent throughout the course of the season so far. So I think for OKC, they have what it takes this season.
The Nuggets from Denver beat Milwaukee Bucks by 108 points to 104 points. Where did Gianni Antetokounmpo go?
I think for Gianni Antetokounmpo, it's not been, and shining lights for his side so far this season. That is not to take away some of the effort he's been putting in.
He was able to stop LeBron James in the encounter against LA Lakers.
Yeah, for LeBron James, not too many are even looking at his direction because of the age factor that is actually affecting him. But then he's been able to surmount that age issue, and he's doing pretty well. But I think for me, there is need for him to also think about retirement, because we know he's a very good player. But then I think age is the key factor out there.
Phoenix Suns beat Washington Wizards by 112 points to 93 points. Golden State Warriors lost at home. Yes, Atlanta Hawks came all the way from the Hawks from Atlanta to the Golden State and beat them by 124 points to 111 points. Sacramento Kings beat Houston Rockets by 102 to 92 points. A bad one of my side there. The Houston Rockets, they couldn't make up to 93 points in this fixture.
Not a very good one at all for them. Sacramento Kings, a team that is also struggling as well, like Golden State Warriors, because for Sacramento Kings, I think they are seated 14th, yes, in their log, in their conference. How they be beaten in that game, but then they find a way to pull the strings and to get the needed victory. But you take a look at the point, put in by their opponent. I think it was such a disappointing one, failing to even meet up to the 100-point mark. I think it's not a good one.
Time for us to take a break. When we return for a break, there will be more to come. The African Cup of Nations is still ongoing out there in Morocco. Wow. Semi-final fixtures all known. I will look at how the Super Eagles have distinguished themselves so far at the African Cup of Nations. And the Spanish Super Cup, yes, the Super Cup Copa has been decided. FC Barcelona are winners again. Can we stop Barcelona this season? Or who can stop Barcelona this season? When we return from a break, answers will be given to you. Welcome back. It's Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. And earlier on, we told you how the Basketball Federation here in Nigeria is gearing up for elections. And we just hope that this election will be rancor free. Now, let's get you some latest coming from the world of football. And Mike, match officials in the Nigeria Premier League team has confirmed receipt of their unpaid indemnities for officiating in the Nigerian Top Flight League ahead of resumption of the second stanza this week. What carrying news for numerous match officials that had taken part in the league earlier on. Of course, the 2025-25 season halfway has gone, and there has been complaints that match officials have not been paid.
I think it's a great news to hear that the match officials, match assessors, and commissioners have all received their indemnities, for the first stanza of the 2025-2026 Nigerian Premier Football League season. So this is going to motivate the officials to even redouble their efforts, and knowing fully well that they are paid to do their job, but when they are not paid, then sometimes when they make some of these blunders, one might not actually know what is going on behind the scene. But then I think it's a good news for we to hear that all those indemnities has been cleared, and they are standing on a clean slate right now as the second stanza of the Nigerian Premier Football League is going to get underway this Wednesday. Great results. Great news rather for the match officials, match assessors, and of course the match commissioners.
Good news coming in there. We understand a lot of money has been set aside for the match officials, and we just hope that they will go into the matches and do not look for gratification from elsewhere. Some of these match officials have been accused of having, had their decision compromised by some of the teams.
Sometimes the hanky-panky game that some of them play is based on the fact that maybe some of the indemnity advances were not paid them. So, and I think some of them have families to cater for. So, they now try to rub mud in the integrity of the league by being compromised by some persons out there for them to, turn result for whatever reason. So for me, I think that is going to go a whole long way to stop that, because when you are fully paid, you know that you are not being owed, then you now concentrate on how to make the game better. But when you are being owed, you think about family responsibility, bills I need to pay for. Then when some of this gratification comes your way, you find it very difficult to look aside. You just accept the brand envelope, and it rubs off on the integrity of the league, which is not good.
Okay, well, let's look at the Super Eagles now. It's rest days at the competition because of getting into the semi-final stage. Teams are preparing for the encounter, but for the Super Eagles of Nigeria, it looks like this might be the year for the Super Eagles. We've never seen the Super Eagles team for a very long time. In fact, in the last 2 decades, we haven't seen a Super Eagles side that has scored as many as, in fact, in the entire history of Nigerian football, we haven't seen a Super Eagles side that has scored as many as 14 goals. Yet, they are into the semi-final of the African Cup of Nations. In the past, I think way back, we used to have a record stand at 12 goals for the entire tournament. I think that was in 2000 or so. But this Super Eagles side at the African Cup of Nations, apart from dominating possession more than any other team they have played so far, they've scored as many as 14 goals. And that's a record. And we still have 2 more games at least to play, in my opinion, at the Nations Cup. Who can stop these Super Eagles players we've seen here from scoring? Ademola Lookman, Adams Akko, of course, Victor Sime as well.
I think it is the Super Eagles that can stop themselves because you take a look at how prolific they have been so far. I think it just pointed to one thing, that they are the front runner for this year's edition of the African Cup of Nations Cup title, because they come up against the best defensive side of the team when they played Algeria, because Algeria remains the only side that had the best defensive record. But then, on the contrary, heading into that game, Nigeria also were the best attacking side, because prior to the game, the Super Eagles had scored 12 goals as well. One of their best, in fact, the best attacking side coming up against the best defense, and they were able to, break that hedge against Algeria. So I think you take a look at the way the team is going, the chemistry, the synergy, the balance team in all ramifications. I mean, I have no doubt that at least they can hit to the final, possibly.
This team seems to be creating records at the African Cup of Nations. Like I mentioned, no Nigerian side has scored more than 12 goals before.
Yeah.
But now they are at the quarterfinal stage. They've scored 14 goals. And they have this record broken right now at the entire history of the African Cup of Nations. No team in the African Cup of Nations has scored 2 or more goals in 5 consecutive games in the entire history of the African Cup of Nations. So it doesn't matter whether you're Morocco, you're Cameroon. No team has scored 2 or more goals in 5 consecutive games.
Even beyond that, there are other records as well that this team have also created. You can also recall that they remain the only side that have appeared in the semi-final of the African Cup of Nations more than any other.
This is their 16th time, right?
Yes.
As many as 16 times.
More than any other team. And then they also they have the second highest player with the best break line passes so far in the person of Alex Iwobi. So I think it's a record, creating or making team as it stands. I think they can also cement all of these records up by lifting the AFCON. And it's going to be an interesting one because great teams are also there in the semi-final. And this is the first time that, yes, the semi-final 4 teams are producing former or present African footballer of the year in the teams. All right, in Egypt you have Mo, Senegal you have Sadio Mane, the Super Eagles you have 2, Lukman Ademola and Victor Osimhen. And then Morocco you have the current African footballer of the year, Akraf Hakimi. Beyond that, it is the first semi-final where we are seeing all teams being coached by African coaches. To this. So I think this year African Cup of Nations is just massive, and we just hope that with all of this interesting record for the Super Eagles, they can cap it up by bringing back home the trophy.
No team at the African Cup of Nations has possessed the ball more than the Super Eagles of Nigeria when in play, and I think we must give kudos to Alex Iwobi and his teammates, especially in that middle line for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. It is getting really very interesting there with Super Eagles breaking records. And of course, like we told you, they've played 5 games so far, and they won those 5 games consecutively. No team as well in the African Cup of Nations has gotten that far. So it's getting really interesting with this Super Eagles side. And of course, the man who is churning all of this out, Erichel, it looks like he was not the real deal, but this is only his second job as head coach of a national team. Last Nations Cup was with Mali. Now he's with the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Yes, he will not be going to the World Cup, but he can be excused. He didn't start the team with the World Cup, but now he's gotten his players, and it looks like he's spot on. We've never seen the Super Eagles play sexy football like we have seen at this African Cup of Nations.
Massive. It was a massive tactical disposition from Erichel. For me, I think we immune him away from not qualifying for the World Cup because it is not actually making. If he had come earlier than the time he came, I can assure you that the Super Eagles would have qualified for the World Cup. So I don't want to throw that line for some of them that were saying that he did not do well. If you take a look at the quality of football being played by the Super Eagles, I think I can't even remember the last time that we played this kind of impressive and sexy football. So I think a lot
of people believe that the world will miss the Super Eagles quality of play at the World Cup because from what we've seen in the last 5 games, they attack, they possess the ball, typical European style, way of dressing the ball in the midfield and breaking away fast. People want to see, those kind of crisp passes and fast breakaway that result into spectacular goals. And we've seen that, with this Erichel Super Eagles of Nigeria. And people are saying, oh, wow, this is advertisement for African, this should have been advertisement for African football at the biggest stage, which is the World Cup.
Definitely, I think I will agree with that. We definitely miss the Super Eagles because of their pattern of play. This is the best football. Not the Europeans. You talk about the UEFA Cup as well. I mean, you take a look at the quality of football being played and compared to what the Super Eagles are playing, in this African Cup of Nations, I think it's way massive. Then kudos as well must also be given to the Moroccan because of the fact that they were able to put up a very standard tough. Because this kind of quality football will be better enjoyed when you have a very good such as the ones that the Moroccans have, because you can try to play that sexy football, but if you are not there on the pitch that is very okay, then it might trouble. So I believe that the world will definitely miss the Super Eagles.
For the Super Eagles of Nigeria to win games, give them the quality pitches, and they will get the job done. The Godswill Akpabio Stadium looks like suffering from overuse, and I think we need more turf that will enhance the quality of play of the Super Eagles. We are not going to the World Cup because we drew key games here in Nigeria and have lost some, and that's not good enough that one of the best African side will not be going to the FIFA World Cup. 4 teams are into the semi-final: Nigeria, Morocco, Senegal, and Nigeria is the only side not going to the World Cup amongst these 4 going to that are into the semi-final of this year's African Cup of Nations.
Quite a disappointing one. If you take a look at the strength of all 4 teams and the kind of football they play, I think this should be the front runners team that should have, hoist the flag of Africa in the World Cup out there, because from all indication, these are some of the best teams in the continent of Africa. Not a good one. Very sad news that the Super Eagles will not be there at the World Cup despite the impressive football that they are playing. So I believe that this is going to serve as a wake-up call for them to know all 4 teams are going to the World Cup apart from we. So let us make this one count by winning the African Cup of Nations.
Let's make it count. Let them go to the World Cup, and let's have the African Cup of Nations to serve with here at the continent. Well, we'll bring you more details, in-depth analysis of what's going on with the Super Eagles of Nigeria in Morocco in the days ahead. Don't forget that all bonuses have been paid now, and the team is in very high spirit. We'll look at the camps of the other teams as well, but that will be on our program Sports Extraordinary at 6 p.m. in Nigerian time. Then on Wednesday, when the fixture between Nigeria and Morocco will come up, there will be a bumper package of that, all 1 hour, reviewing what to expect from the Super Eagles and the other teams that will be at the semi-final fixtures as well. Now, let's go to Europe quickly. And of course, at the weekend, last night to be specific, it was the Spanish Super Cup. Yes, the Super Cup, what they call the Spanish Super Copa. And it ended 3-2 in favor of FC Barcelona. It was an El Clasico fixture because FC Barcelona took on Real Madrid. It ended 3-2. And it looks like no stopping FC Barcelona when they see Real Madrid. This is the 4th time or so they've had to beat Real Madrid, in the last few fixtures. Win the Super Cup, a lot of money comes with it. I think 2 million euro for FC Barcelona, 1.4 million euro for Real Madrid. Of course, you know that there were 2 other teams involved, Atletico Madrid and what's the other club now? And then all of them sharing the available money for the teams. But let's look at it. Rafinha was fantastic last night. He scored that winner. He opened score for FC Barcelona, and of course ended it with that 3rd goal that led the team to winning. So it looks like now this is the 4th time FC Barcelona is taking out Real Madrid in the final.
I think it looks more like one-way victory for FC Barca whenever they come up against the Los Blancos. They've always had a better of the battles, in both. Last season was even worse. It was a 5-2 demolition of this same Madrid side by same Barca. This year, 3 goals to 2. I think this Barca side, you need to give kudos to the coach, talking about Hansi Flick, because this is the same squad that Xavi Hernandez was, complaining about, that they need money to go purchase some market. But the coach came, he's been able to at least make do of what he has, and they are turning out a result. The coach 8 finals right now. He has not lost a single final. Talking about, Hansi Flick. And for the Brazilian Rafinha, he is the unsung hero of that team because he's been doing a lot. Not too many are talking much about him. He doesn't even care about the Ballon d'Or, the FIFA Best Award, but then what he cares, give him the ball, he will definitely deliver when it matters most. So I think he's the key man for the Barca side.
Congratulations to FC Barcelona for winning the Spanish Super Cup. They won down. They're hoping to get more. The La Liga is still on, and they lead as well. Well, there were some matches in the La Liga. We'll bring those details on the program Sports Extraordinary. But quickly, we'll have to wrap up the program. There was FA Cup matches at the weekend in England. There was no Premier League game, so we had the FA Cup. And the biggest casualty at the weekend in the FA Cup in England was Manchester United. Brighton edged them out there by 2-0. Meaning effectively that Manchester United are out of everything this year. If you ask me, there will be no trophy for Manchester United. In fact, out of the FA Cup, they are out of the EPL, and they don't seem to be in any top position in the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely not a good one. I mean, a managerless Manchester United, unable to steady the ship, even when Ruben Amorim was inside. But on the contrary, for me, I think the biggest casualty is Crystal Palace, the defending champion, that were knocked out by a non-league side, Maxfield. So then again, the greatest result we've had over the weekend is Manchester City crashing their opponent 10 goals to 1.
All results of the FA Cup fixtures will come your way on Sports Extraordinary at 6 p.m. Nigerian time. Until when we return at that 6 p.m., remember, peace and unity are clearly pathways to progress. Always enjoy here on Atlantic Television Network.